or send me another email, because I know I get your emails about this issue, and I'm glad to get those. My recollection is that that didn't happen. And so if it did, because I didn't, when I read your comment, I didn't find any problem with that. So if I need to do whatever I need to do to get it back on, I'm happy to do that. If you'll just shoot me an email, if you can let me know exactly what.
I can send you the pages.
Okay, that'd be good, and we'll get it back up, so.
Because we should have open dialogue.
I completely agree. Completely agree. Jean?
I have a question about something you just said. You said that you contacted the city attorney about your Facebook page. Is that, you just said it's a personal page, but you contacted the city attorney, and so the taxpayers paid for you to talk to the city attorney about your personal page?
I contacted the city attorney to find out.
Well, if I'm sorry, folks, but if you look at the legal bills, you would see how much we're paying.
So Jean, the answer is, the question to the city attorney was that your issue? Is it considered a personal Facebook page or an official page? So that determination hadn't been made. I wanted to know the answer to that from the person that is best charged to provide that answer, so that I would know going forward to do what was right.
Okay, all right. And I just think that it should be noted that anyone should be allowed to ask a question as long as they're respectful, and I think I was respectful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Yes, sir.
Could you possibly switch over to Twitter?
I actually do have a Twitter account.
Oh, good. I'll pick that up and go. I just think Twitter is a lot more.
Gene, it was a good
After all, the president uses it quite a bit.
I appreciate that suggestion.
I do have another question.
Sure.
In the, is it not the Gazette, but the email, the Wildwood email,
Newsletter.
the newsletter, is that what it is? Because I get the Gazette at home.
Right.
And we also get the newsletter by email?
E-news.
This is not a criticism, it's just an option that I need to find out about with all this politically correct stuff. Down at the bottom, there's usually advertisements. And is that an official Wildwood government thing?
We have an e-newsletter and social media policy which does provide for sharing things that are based in Wildwood, like a Wildwood business that's having a special event or a
Okay,
church.
I'm not upset with that. What I'm asking is, we have a number of churches, don't hate me folks, a number of churches that are advertising Vacation Bible Schools, services, Easter sunrise service. That's all fine, okay? Do your religion, that's great, but can that be on Wildwood's community page? Is that not an exception to the church and state, since it's a government document? And I don't know. So
Yeah,
that's a good point.
We've allowed that. We're not, the city's not saying you, promoting that. You can go to these events. We're just letting people know there's
If we're
opportunities
not
to.
promoting it, then why are we advertising? Do we not advertise something? If I say my boat is for sale, is that not an advertisement?
We're principally identifying things that are a community type event, whether it be run by a church or
I
another
agree with that
organization.
on everything except church and state.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I share the concern about that question. And second, my recollection is that we had our city attorney look at that at one point, and I believe the answer was that because it is simply providing information about events and so forth, that it's fine to do. Nevertheless, the question is a good one, and we will ask our city attorney to look at it again, just to be sure that my recollection is correct, because we do need to get that right, so. Thank you for that question. Who wants to do next?
Is Stonecrest a not-for-profit ownership, or is it for-profit?
It's for profit.
It's for profit.
It's private corporate, right? Not church-based in any way.
No.
Yes, sir?
You're too young for that.
How does Wildwood pick the two areas where the St. Louis County Police are gonna do their deer sample?
I didn't hear your question.
You wanted to know how we picked, how the area was picked where St. Louis County Police is going to do the deer sampling?
Oh,
The deer sampling can only occur during certain times of the year when leaves are off, so, since we just recently, took on that initiative, we were limited on how much time we could devote to it, so we identified areas to survey initially with the intent that we'll go to other areas, later this year in the early winter. Those areas that are initially being looked at are, east of 109, mostly north of Manchester Road. That seems to be the area where we received the most complaints about deer causing property damage and things like that.
Exactly, no, that way someone gets a deer out there, that's where, are you gonna do more, basically?
We will do more. We're not gonna do the entire city, but going to the west will be focused on the main state highways. That seems to be, just by the nature of more vehicles, higher speeds, and that's where more of the traffic crashes with deer occur. So we'll be looking at that area for sure.
Is there a price tag associated with that?
Our St. Louis County Police Department has been trained by the Department of Conservation to do the surveying. They actually do it from the police vehicles with spotlights at night. So yeah, there's some time associated with the police department to do it. What it will provide us is data regarding population densities, so we can see where the highest populations are, and then our Board of Public Safety in turn will then be looking at what we can do to help thin the populations where they're presenting a problem.
So schedules are going to be shifted. Daytime schedules possibly shifted to nighttime schedules to go out and count deer? Is that a fair statement?
No, it won't pull people away from their regular schedules. There'll be overtime of police officers to.
Overtime?
Yep.
Interesting.
And will that be paid by us or by conservation?
That's paid by us.
And how many complaints have you received from those particular areas? And what is the determining factor before you step out of those areas and encompass other areas based on the number of complaints that you've received?
That has been I can't tell you a number, but that's an ongoing every year.
Every community,
Yeah,
just
it's
since you got
one
out
of
of
the
the city
biggest
of St. Louis.
issues we hear about
Yeah.
in Wildwood, quite frankly.
And what do you plan to do about it? Because nobody's come up with a solution to this problem yet. We've tried
Well-
birth control, we've tried archers going in, we've tried trap and transfer, and deer are very prolific. I mean, and look where we live.
Yeah, what we do allow hunting in the city of Wildwood, but we have a 3-acre minimum requirement. These areas east of 109 have very few properties where that can be achieved, so our Board of Public Safety will have to look at whether there are options to maybe, one thing that's been looked at in the past, for instance, is allowing properties to combine their acreage to meet the 3-acre minimum, so that maybe you can allow hunting in certain areas, but that it might not necessarily be allowed all the time. They could have a special, very limited period of time to do it, given the proximity of homes. But as you mentioned, there's other communities have done a lot of different things. Town and country is certainly one that
Not a great
gets the
deal of
headlines,
success.
and
Right.
they've had success in some areas and no success in other methods. So we'll try to learn from their past experiences and what we might do.
Gene?
What you just said concerns me, because then I live in an area that's not 3 acres, and we often have people, as Officer Ryder knows, that think they do, and they are shooting guns. And so combining acreage is a concern. Will the 450 feet from a structure still apply? Because, you know, I have grandchildren. My neighbors behind me have 5 little boys that moved in, and some people that live a couple houses from them have a whole group of Boy Scouts. It's great to have all these kids running through the yards. I mean, that is what neighborhoods are about. But if you're combining lots to make 3 acres, that's a big concern to residents, and we should know that because children will be out there at any given time. And then I have one last thing.
We're not, let me just respond, I don't think we're gonna go down a road of putting children at risk, so.
Well, I know, but if you combine it,
Agreed. And so that's
these
something
little boys, I never know where they're going to pop up.
Well,
They're
and
very.
That's something that the Board of Public Safety, you know, would take into account.
Okay.
Go ahead with your side.
The other thing is I do make sure if I plant anything that it is deer resistant, and then they will teach me if it's really deer resistance or not. But I have since you're talking about wildlife, what are you going to do about squirrels? I mean, you know, I have squirrels that keep pulling all my plants out of my pots. So the squirrels are here. The hawks come down and take away little critters. And yeah, the deer they do eat plants. So, and if people would drive the speed limit, they're probably able to stop their car easier before they hit a deer. So, you know, I like you to address the deal about squirrels too. Might seem ridiculous, but
More hawks.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cole.
Yes. We've gotten the revised sound study for the zip line. I don't know if you have had a chance to review it, but I have read it. And as resident that was opposed to that whole project, it does show that they are going to be over the noise ordinance specifically for line 3 where I live. So I've talked to the director of planning and he's recommending an abatement in the form of a berm. So he kind of explained the next steps. I'd like you to tell me what the next steps are then going forward. I'm looking forward here. What happens now? Director of planning makes his recommendation and then what happens in the process of site development?
Well, the planning, it will come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They'll have to approve the site development plan after it's gone through the Department of Planning's review. Once they've taken action on the site development plan, it is then submitted to the City Council. The City Council doesn't have to take action. It's received and filed by the council after the.
But it could take action.
It could take action.
But it doesn't have to.
What form of action could they take at that point?
They could, what we call pick it up, so it's, on the council agendas, frequently, things that come out of planning and zoning are reported at the end of the agenda as a receipt and file. And essentially, what that means is the council doesn't have to do anything with that, it's there for on an informational basis, but the council can, what we call pick it up.
And put it back to a committee like they did before?
They could refer it to a committee, or it could take action in its own right.
But that recommendation would become part of the CUP for that particular project, is that correct? If planning and zoning approves it?
Well, the CUP has been approved, that's what all the
But it's
conditions are.
conditional, so this condition, the noise, I mean, you can't approve a CUP for a project if it's going to be over the noise ordinance. How would that work?
That's why the site plan stage follows. Their site plan has to adhere to those conditions, so.
Okay.
If there's a noise issue, they have to address it, such as a berm.
Okay. And then it goes back to planning and zoning, and then council gives it the final stamp, or they can take some other action on it.
Correct.
So that sounds like another couple months before we really know. Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
probably accurate, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I hate to do this, but as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately today I've got a conflict. I've got to head to the city for an appearance down there in a court case. So I have to cut this short by about 15 minutes. And again, my apology for that. I want to thank all of you for being here. I always have new faces. That's just great. new issues, new faces, and you're here to talk about all things Wildwood. So appreciate you being here, and if you didn't get your question answered, if you want to follow up, send me an email, call me, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Congratulations, sir. Oh, just thank you so much. I got an issue with Highway 100, I get a left turn, and something. As you reach the two-lane, and you go up to the top of a little bridge, there's subdivision that turns left.
And it's probably not-
You're going west, you would turn left, and there's subdivision at the top of the hill, which is really a blind hill. On the other side, it goes down to the fire station, and the applicants, it's got no road.
Right.
They come off the top, the problem is, zipping behind them, they're trying to turn left. And you know what the highway department said? Oh, it's just something that, highway department said, we haven't had the calendar here.
I'll put some kill somebody.
So we need to offer somebody the altar of the highway guy before we can get a left turn. I think that's bullshit.
Is there gonna be a representative from?
Yeah, there'll be somebody there from subdivision.
I'll go drive it today too. Just take-
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it, try to get some pictures. I know where it's at, and I've been past it. Yeah, it's right if you get on the two-lane. You go up a little rise, top of that rise, subdivision goes on to get
You know, can I give you a suggestion about your squirrels?